You ever have one of those moments where you walk in on something nice and your brain just completely shuts down trying to process it? Yeah, that was me. A couple weekends ago. It started out like any other lazy Saturday. Coffee was brewed. The dog was dozing. I was feeling optimistic, even thinking I might finally clean out that weird drawer in the kitchen that's half batteries, half mystery screws from 1998. But then I heard a noise. Now, I'm not usually the nosy type, but it sounded rhythmic and kind of intense. So I followed the sound down the hall, and when I opened the garage door, there he was, my stepson, 12 years old, grease on his hands, red in the face, completely focused on what he was doing. He was playing with his tool, specifically, a socket wrench. Now hang on, before you jump to conclusions, let me explain. This kid, he's been obsessed with fixing stuff lately. Ever since his school had career week and some local mechanic came in talking about rebuilding engines, he's been hooked, completely hooked. He watches YouTube tutorials like they're Netflix. He's been repairing his bicycle for 3 weeks now. I think he's taken it apart more times than it's actually been ridden. But when I first saw him hunched over like that, all red-faced and flustered, my brain short-circuited. I didn't even process the socket wrench in his hand. All I saw was the awkwardness, the moment every parent or step-parent dreads. And then he looked up, and I looked at him, and it was just silent, like birds stopped chirping silent. I said, "Everything okay in here?" He kind of jumped. You know that guilty jump, like when you're doing something you're not sure you should be doing, but you're also not entirely sure why. He mumbled, "Just fixing the lawnmower." And I looked down, and sure enough, he had the whole thing opened up, spark plug out, air filter sitting on the workbench, wires labeled with masking tape. And I swear to you, I've never been more relieved to see a disassembled lawnmower in my life. But here's the thing, it got me thinking about how fast kids grow up, about how the line between childhood curiosity and adult awkwardness can blur in an instant, and about how important it is to handle these moments with care. Because let's be honest, if I'd made a big deal out of that moment, if I'd reacted with shock or shame, who knows what he'd remember from it. Kids are sensitive, they internalize stuff fast. A laugh at the wrong time, a joke that feels off, or a look that says, "You're doing something bad," instead of, "I'm just surprised," that sticks. So instead, I leaned against the doorway and asked him what he was working on. And that's when it started. This full-blown monologue about carburetors and combustion, and how he watched 3 different videos and thinks the guy with the beard knows more than the guy with the tattoos. I didn't understand half of what he said, but I listened. Because what he needed in that moment wasn't a parent freaking out. He needed a grown-up who sees him, who gets that he's figuring stuff out, about the world, about machines, maybe even about himself. And honestly, it turned into one of the best conversations we've had. We talked about the lawnmower, sure, but then we started talking about how he wants to build his own go-kart, how he thinks he might be into engineering, how he loves the feeling of making something work with his own hands. You could see the confidence in his eyes. You could see that spark. And later that night, I told his mom what happened. We both laughed about my momentary panic. But then we also talked about how glad we were that he's curious, that he's getting into something real and hands-on instead of just video games and screens, which, by the way, he still plays. But now he balances it, because now he's got a passion, a purpose. It made me think about how many moments in parenting, especially step-parenting, come down to choosing connection over correction, choosing to breathe instead of react, choosing to ask instead of assume. Because if I had stormed in there, made a weird joke, or overreacted, I might have shut down a whole part of who he's becoming. Instead, I got to see this side of him that's focused, driven, and kind of brilliant. Honestly. And I got to be a part of it. So yeah, next time you hear something strange in the garage, take a breath, ask a question, be present. Sometimes it's just a kid with a wrench. But every now and then, it's the start of something way bigger. That day. I didn't just catch my stepson playing with his tool. I caught him building something. I caught him becoming. And I got to be there for it. And if that's not what parenting's all about, I don't know what is.